Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP details a devastating betrayal experienced by a husband from his wife while they were trying to conceive. Discovering unauthorized charges for a hotel 75 miles away led him to confront his wife, who confessed to planning an encounter with another man. Despite her pleas for forgiveness, he ended the marriage due to ongoing deceit, including prior long-term online interactions and inappropriate activities for financial gain. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 33 female, and I, 40 male, were married for 9 years before she cheated on me. She was really into flea marketing and collecting knickknacks. We lived with my brother in his house, but she had an RV camper and a garden in the front yard that she decorated and cared for. Whenever we went on camping trips, we brought our dog, but my wife really wanted to own cows. They were her favorite animal, and she was a farmer's daughter. While at a flea market one day, she met a man that owned several cow calves. As it turned out, this man was at the flea market weekly, just like her. They started setting up their tables side by side, and I was happy for her. She made a friend who shared her interests and made her laugh. I didn't find it odd or worry about her cheating on me with this man. She took a selfie with him, Mike, and posted it on Instagram, calling him a fellow junkie as a joke. He looked to be at least 10 years older than me. My wife and I met in college, where I had to fight off other guys, and our bond only became stronger in marriage. Her sister was cheated on by her husband, and whenever that happened, my wife talked about what a shame it is whenever someone cheats. She told me she was so thankful to have me as her husband, and that she would never break my heart like that. They were together every Saturday morning, so they started having breakfast together and sharing more personal details. We had him over for dinner, and he was a pretty likable guy. He actually came to a cookout that was technically a family reunion, so our whole family got to meet him. He started sharing tips and experiences with her father about his cows. Within a year, they became good friends. One summer, Mike invited my wife and me to camp on his mountain land. He was growing acres of oak trees to sell as his main source of income, so it was a great place to experience the outdoors. My wife insisted we go, so we took the RV camper and planned to stay for a week. I was a little nervous, but she convinced me it would turn out fine. She only wanted to take up his offer because he was lonely and needed friends. For 3 days, we had a great time meeting his cows, taking pictures, having cookouts, going fishing, and having campfires. In the middle of the 4th night, around 1 a.m., I sat straight up in bed when I couldn't feel my wife next to me. Since she wasn't in the camper, I went outside and called for her. I didn't hear anything, so I started walking toward Mike's cabin. On the way, the outdoor showers were within eyesight, and I caught a glimpse of a small light and what looked like the shape of bodies. I approached as quietly as I could until I could see what was happening. Mike was holding my wife against him in the shower, kissing her. Needless to say, they were both in their birthday suits. Just before I confronted them, I heard AP tell her he wanted to do it again. She excitedly agreed before I walked up to them and yelled, making them both jump and grab their towels. I asked what exactly they were going to do again. They stood there shamefully, swearing a little. It only took my wife a few seconds to start crying. I could tell she just didn't expect me to catch her, and she wished she could go back in time. AP stepped forward to apologize. He was an army vet, so I looked up to him, and it was harder for me to feel real anger towards him. He said he interfered in our relationship and he'd never forgive himself, but he suggested that I forgive my wife because it was him who asked her to do what I asked. He couldn't look me in the eye, so I knew what happened. When I realized the truth, my wife cried harder, called my name, and begged me to forgive her. It was so dramatic, and I hate drama. I remember feeling very numb before I found it possible to turn around, go back to the camper, and get my phone. I called my brother and told him everything. He couldn't believe my wife did this to me. He drove through the middle of the night on a country road to come pick me up and take me home. It was an hour-and-a-half drive, so while I waited, my wife awkwardly begged me to forgive her and call back my brother to tell him I didn't need a ride. She tried offering any kind of deal to get me to forgive her, failing to notice that there wasn't a proper way to recover from infidelity. Once that decision is made, it can't be undone. My wife came to the house to get her stuff gradually, over time. Every time she came by, I had my brother talk to her if necessary because I couldn't stand her. It might have been AP's idea for them to do things, but she made the choice to leave the camper and get naked for him. This was still her fault, because she clearly didn't respect or care about me as her husband. She had the nerve to say it shouldn't even count, because it happened so fast, and she was half asleep. That was one of the last things I ever heard her say. She continued living on AP's property 2 years after our divorce. Then AP decided to sell a majority of his acreage and forced my ex to leave. She tried to ask her father permission to park her RV at his house, but he refused. He was extremely disappointed in her and AP and didn't want to have anything to do with them. They betrayed everything he believed in when it came to trust, family, and relationships. Since she didn't have anywhere else to park her RV, she now lives in a campground alone. Today's second story. In this story, Opie recounts his marriage to his ex-wife, detailing their meeting, courtship, and eventual unraveling due to her infidelity. Despite his efforts to maintain their relationship, he discovers her cheating at a nightclub. Confronted with evidence, she begs forgiveness but is ultimately divorced. His actions result in the nightclub owner's downfall. Despite lingering hurt, he resolves to focus on personal happiness and financial stability. Now let's get into the story. I was married to my ex-wife for 3 years before she broke our marital vows and shattered whatever was left of my heart. My ex-wife and I met at a bar on a Friday night, and coincidentally we sat next to each other and ordered the same drink from the bartender. While I had gone to the bar to unwind from the day's stress, it seemed like my ex-wife was there to cry over her broken heart. She kept drinking and taking more shots until she threw up. As the good Samaritan I was, I helped her back to the more comfortable bar seats and stayed with her for a while, and that was how we became friends. I didn't think that helping her that night would be the beginning of our love story, and somehow, her sweet personality caused me to open my once broken heart to love again. My ex-wife was a caregiver, and I worked with a tech company. On our free days, we would hang out together, either go to a restaurant or the bar we met or go for a walk in the park, and in less than 6 months of knowing her, I asked her out. It was almost like she charmed me with her personality, and I fell deeply in love. And because we were both young, financially stable, and in love, we married after a year of dating. We were so happy, and every day I thank God for giving me a woman like her, mainly because I had lost hope in love and had already decided not to get married. I had experienced multiple heartbreaks with my exes in the past. With my ex-wife in my life, I was a changed person. I cut off friends because our goals did not align, especially the ones that insisted I cheat on my ex-wife because she would do it anyway. I also stopped staying out late because I wanted to spend more time with my ex-wife. I just wanted our marriage to be perfect, and because I had not been in a relationship that lasted that long, my ex-wife and I agreed that we would not have kids until we were ready. We got along well for the first 2 years of our marriage. If we had fights, I ensured we settled it before bed and didn't sweep anything under the carpet. I didn't want a situation where our arguments would lead her to find comfort in another man's arms, so I did what I had to do. In terms of provision, I provided for my ex-wife as a man should provide for his family. I got her whatever she wanted to make her happy and did my own share of chores at home. We visited our families whenever we were supposed to, and I always remembered our anniversaries. Around the 3rd year of our marriage, I noticed that my wife started acting differently. She wasn't cold toward me, but I could tell that something was off with her. Initially, I believed she acted that way because of stress from work. She recently told me about a new client she was assigned, and she was struggling with him. Since it was around the same time, I didn't pay much attention to the slight changes, and I encouraged her to rest more whenever. She returned from work instead of watching reality shows the whole night. But when weeks passed and she didn't change, I became worried. I talked to her about taking a leave so she could rest properly, but she shook it off like it was nothing. Then she started acting weird and asking weird questions. She would ask questions about couples that opened their marriage and how they felt to be with someone else aside from their spouses, and if I answered the first question. She would jokingly ask me what I would do if I found out she was cheating on me. I blatantly told her I would leave and divorce her because I would not tolerate living with a cheater, and she would laugh it off and pretend she was asking a harmless question. She didn't ask this question once or twice. I lost count of the times she asked, and each time she asked, I wondered why she was asking the same question again. She would tell me she wanted to be sure that I really loved and valued her. Initially, I believed her, but it became suspicious when she kept bugging me with the same question almost every 2 weeks. But after so much consideration, I let it slide. I didn't want to ruin my beautiful marriage and relationship with her based on my past experiences with my exes, so I convinced myself that she was only reviewing her marriage and doing her love affirmation thing. Around the same month, her question started. The organization she worked for hired another caregiver around the same age as my ex-wife, and they quickly became friends. This new friend was exactly her opposite. She loved to hang out on weekends and have fun, and in no time, my ex-wife joined her. They started hanging out together more often, and after a long week at work, they would pick a place they wanted to hang out at. I didn't have any problem with my ex-wife and her new friend. I was glad she put aside her introverted nature and opened up to someone else that wasn't me. And I knew how choking it could be for your spouse to be your only friend. As she started hanging out with her new friend more often, it also gave me the time to rekindle my friendship with some of my old friends and see them regularly. At the same time, nothing really changed. Changed in our marriage, we were still the same, and our love for each other remained the same. One weekend I invited 2 friends to come over and watch football at my house since I knew my ex-wife would be out that evening with her new friend. She was always my football partner, and since her outing was important to her, I didn't want her to cancel, so I invited my friends over. Unfortunately, about 15 minutes before the game started, I noticed we were out of my favorite chips, and I went to my ex-wife's purse to steal some cash. I knew she always left cash in that particular purse in case we needed to buy something urgently, and it wasn't my first time taking money from there. Instead of getting the cash I wanted, I found a strange business card with a red lipstick stain on it, and I was sure the lipstick was hers because it had that vanilla fragrance on the card. Also, I had heard my ex-wife talk about the name on the card a couple of times on the phone with her friend. Seeing that card didn't sit well with me, so I told my friends about it, and they opted we go and check out the place. We drove to the address on the card, which turned out to be a nightclub. I was stunned because she never mentioned going to a nightclub to me. She talked about fancy restaurants, bars, and picnics, but never a nightclub. Outside the nightclub, I recognized her friend's car, and I knew they were in there together. To cut the story short, we went inside and saw her in the VIP section with a stranger. They were cuddling and laughing at the top of their voices. From the way she wrapped herself around him, anyone could tell they weren't strangers to each other. I was so shocked and heartbroken, and I couldn't even move from my position. Thankfully, one of my friends took out his phone, took photos, and recorded my ex-wife and her lover together. I couldn't go home that night because I was so angry, so I crashed at one of my friend's place. That same night, we did a quick research on the club, and we found out her lover was the owner of the nightclub. Not just that, he was also the son of the client she was always complaining about, and it made sense to me. As for her lover, I left his nightclub a 1-star review and posted the photos and video online. The following day, I went home to my wife, and she was acting all nice and innocent. I didn't want to beat around the bush, so I told her I knew she was cheating, and she immediately denied it. I watched her cry and call me names for accusing her, and when I was done with her drama, I showed her the photos and videos, and she couldn't say anything. Politely, I asked her to go in and pack her things, and she started begging and crying real tears. She blamed her new friend for misleading her and promised to be a better wife, but I was not having that. Her relationship with the club owner started when she asked those questions. I was so heartbroken and devastated, and I kicked her out when I couldn't listen to her pleas anymore. On the other hand, the photos and videos I posted went viral, and it ruined his career. Club's reputation. It was such a big scandal, and even big bloggers in our city carried it. Unfortunately for him, his club began to run down. Eventually, my ex-wife and I divorced, and shortly after, she left town because the whole video thing did not die down, and people recognized her as the cheating wife from the photos and video. She was even used for memes. Until now, I still stumble on her pictures used as memes. It's been years and my heart has been locked for love. I am not ready to experience such heartbreak again, and I have focused more on doing the things that make me happy and add money to my account.